system and a pasture that's planted with bahia grass. And this is a rhizomatous grass, which means it just spreads everywhere and nothing else could grow there with it. Now you can see at the edges here, there's some pioneer species that are starting to encroach into the pasture. So it's not, the bahia is not all powerful, but if you look out there, you can see it's almost a solid ground layer of bahia grass. And a lot of people are interested in converting bahia pastures back to native ground cover. There's a couple steps you need to go through to do that. The first one is that you have to kill the bahia grass. And yeah.
I have a team of horses that can kill and completely eliminate all the bahia grass pasture.
Well, that is actually a legitimate option. If you do have animals, you could just like overgraze it. Yeah. If you don't have grazing animals, herbicide is probably your best option. Roundup. And it usually takes a couple applications, so you would go through and nuke the whole thing with Roundup, and then come back when it resprouts and kill everything that's green. And then after that you would disc it and reseed with a native grass seed mix. And we've got some more details on that in your handout there. The problem with that process is that it can get expensive. The native seed mix ranges from $38 to $52 a pound. So if you're trying to do a large area, it can get into the several thousands of dollars range. And so we're trying to think of ways to help make it affordable to people. One way is the cost sharing programs that we offer, which Chris is going to talk about at the end. If we could cut your cost in half or even more, that could make it easier for you to restore a pasture like this to native ground cover. Another idea is to just do a small area, like maybe just do a strip along the edge or an area close to your house if you'd rather be looking at native wildflowers than a bahia pasture. Maybe focus on the one area that's visible from your front porch. A third idea is you could do strips through the field and introduce some more diversity into it. So you might not eliminate all of the bahia, but you could cut down, if you had a 5-acre pasture, if you just did strips through it, you might only end up needing 1 acre of seed. But there's a couple different places you can get native seed nowadays. The Native Wildflower Growers, or the Florida Wildflower Growers Cooperative is online, and they offer bulk seed mixes. They have a Florida upland, they have a grass mix that's wild harvested that includes wiregrass and several other of the bunch grasses. And then they've got a wildflower mix too, with a lot of beautiful wildflowers in it. And it's important to keep in mind that not everything in the seed mix is going to come up. It is kind of a gamble, but if you plant it in the fall and winter, which is when the seeds would naturally fall, and you get a decent amount of rain, you can expect to have pretty good germination, especially of blue stems and love grasses. Wiregrass can be a little bit more finicky, but some people get great germination of wiregrass, and it's pretty exciting to look out and see what used to be a bahia pasture and see that you've restored it with native grasses. That's it. Any questions?
Do you want to mention when to plant the pine trees in this whole system?
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you wanted to do the pines too, I mean, at the same time, for a typical landowner, at the same time makes the most sense because longleaf pines are really sensitive to competition. So if you're going to kill everything and disc it, that's the perfect time to plant pines, and you can seed in among them. At the Fish and Wildlife Commission, we usually do the ground cover first and then come back with longleaf later. But the problem with that is that then you've got your ground cover there competing with the pines, and we've had a lot of trouble actually getting the pines to grow once we've restored the ground cover. The benefit of doing the ground cover first is that if you need to come in and redo it, you can. But probably what makes the most sense is to take advantage of having cleared everything out, plant your pines and plant your ground cover, and in a couple years you'll be able to burn it and maintain it.
One of the things you might attempt, if a more limited ground cover restoration was your goal, is you could plant the pines by scalping. And what scalping is a small, it looks like a miniature fire plow. It's got a coulter and 2 discs and a couple wings, and it skims the grass off about 3 or 4 inches deep for about a 2.5 foot wide strip. And of course, you don't want to run that downhill because you might get some erosion issues, but kind of follow the contour. So you could scalp and plant your longleaf. Now you've got bare ground right there. You move the move the bahia grass out of the way. You might have some seed bank of some certain things coming back up in there, but you could use that bare ground as a place to put native ground cover type seed in that spot right there. And then you'd have strips running with your longleaf all the way across the field. So that might be a limited way to do some without having to have the expense of doing it all.
Yep, and some of those things may well spread into the bahia and compete with the bahia too.
There's an old wildlife biologist I knew years ago. He said benign neglect will eventually not get rid of your bahia grass, but it will diminish over time. The weeds will tend to start to kind of overtop it, and it'll get a little thin. Bahia grass would like to be mowed or burned or taken care of, and so if you don't take care of it, it'll diminish some over time, but it will not go away completely unless you get after it with some pretty powerful herbicide treatments.
Are you saying that you can buy seeds for wiregrass?
Yes.
And
yep, online at the
successful?
yes.
You can also buy plugs.
Yeah, I knew about
And if
the
you're
plug,
just
I didn't
doing
know
a
about the
small
seeds.
area, I have transplanted in the gallon-sized pots of wiregrass that I had, but in fairly good-sized chunks. Little bitty plug-sized chunks are difficult to transplant. You just have to buy those.
The seed is part of a mix that they collect at Avon Park. So it's wiregrass and other grasses that you get from the Growers Cooperative, and I think they even use the same site and they offer a similar mix.
What is the web address again?
It's in the handout. I think there's
Yes,
4
it is
web
in the
addresses
handout.
in there that are good sources.
And if you Google search Florida Wildflower Growers Cooperative, it'll pop right up.
And that's new that that's publicly available. For a long time you couldn't get that seed.
Yeah.
But one thing on what Dave was saying about the benign neglect, there are a lot of things that'll come in. Wiregrass probably is not one of them. It's very finicky about germinating from seed, about both flowering and germinating from seed in the wild. And so you really would have to seed or plant that if you want to see wiregrass.
Is there a certain amount of time after putting the seed out and stuff starts to come back that you need to wait before you do prescribed burning out there?
I would say probably about the same as when you plant pines, 2 to 3 years, let things germinate and become mature.
Yeah, it can take a little while for that wiregrass to really exhibit itself. Sometimes, it'll be just a few sprigs for a year or so, but it takes a while for it to make a real decent sized clump from seed, but it will do it. And they've done these sort of things and thought that, well, we didn't get a success here because it's so hard to see, but give it some time and it'll start to exhibit itself.
All right. Okay, we'll move on to the next site and follow Deanna.